Welcome to the Karma Army. Names and details have been changed, but the justice? Every word of it is real. I never thought that moving out of a flat would become the defining battle of my adult life. It started with a carpet and a smell that wasn't there, and it ended in a courtroom with a landlord who deeply, profoundly regretted ever meeting me. Let me take you back to the beginning. I rented the flat for 2 years. Ground floor, 1 bedroom, a quiet street in the kind of neighborhood that real estate listings describe as up and coming, and residents describe as fine, mostly. The flat itself was adequate, not beautiful, not terrible. Slightly tired carpets that had clearly hosted several tenants before me. A kitchen extractor fan that hummed more loudly than it needed to. A hallway that smelled faintly of whoever had lived there previously. I didn't mind any of that. I wasn't renting a palace. I was renting somewhere to live, and I treated it accordingly. The landlord, I'll call him Mr. Aldridge, seemed professional enough at the start. He arrived for the initial viewing in a pressed shirt, drove a large German car, and had the polished confidence of a man who owned several properties and had been doing this long enough to feel completely in control of every transaction. He spoke to me with the mildly condescending energy of someone who views tenants as a necessary inconvenience, standing between himself and pure passive income. Not rude exactly, just the particular flavor of patronizing that wealthy property people sometimes can't help. I smiled, shook his hand, and signed the tenancy agreement. I was a model tenant. I want to say that plainly because it matters to the story. 2 full years. Not a single late payment. I paid by standing order, same day every month, never a missed beat. I kept the flat immaculately. I never had complaints from the neighbors. I reported a slow drain within the week it appeared and waited patiently for the weeks it took him to send someone. I bought my own draft excluder for the bedroom window when it started letting in cold air, rather than bother him about it. I repainted a scuff on the hallway wall with paint from a hardware shop I matched to the existing color myself. By any standard, I was the kind of tenant landlords write testimonials for. Quiet, responsible, considerate. The kind of person who leaves a place better than he found it. And crucially, because a friend had given me a piece of advice before I ever moved in. Advice I will be grateful for until my last breath. I had documented everything from day one. On move-in day, before I unpacked a single box, I walked through every room with my phone and filmed it. Not casually, methodically, every wall, every ceiling, every floor, every appliance, opened, switched on, checked, narrated, every window, every door frame, every visible mark, every pre-existing scuff, every loose hinge, every worn patch of carpet. I spoke the date aloud at the start of the video. I uploaded it to cloud storage that same evening. I took still photographs alongside the video, hundreds of them, time-stamped, organized by room, backed up in 3 places because my friend had been very clear. One backup is not a backup. 2 years later, on the day I moved out, I did exactly the same thing again. Cleaned the flat from top to bottom, professionally, using a cleaning company I had booked specifically for the end of tenancy. I kept the invoice. I documented the clean with photographs taken immediately after the company finished. I filmed another walkthrough, same method, same narration, same discipline. Every surface visible, every light on, curtains open, nothing hidden. I handed the keys back to Aldridge in person on a Thursday morning. He did a brief walkthrough, made a few non-committal sounds, and told me he'd be in touch. He was in touch the following Tuesday. His email was lengthy and, I remember this clearly, written in the particular tone of a man who believes he is delivering inconvenient news regretfully, when in fact he is just barely concealing his satisfaction. He was disappointed, he said, with the state of the property upon my departure. He had found, and here followed a list, a significant stain on the living room carpet that he attributed to me. The kitchen extractor fan was not functioning correctly and required replacement. Multiple walls bore marks that, in his professional assessment, required full repainting. He had obtained estimates from contractors. His total costs came to just over £900, which he intended to deduct from my deposit before returning the remainder. A remainder which, given the sum of the deductions, amounted to almost nothing. I sat with that email for a moment. Then I opened my move-out video. There was no stain on the carpet. I watched the footage of the living room floor in full, with the overhead light on and a lamp positioned to make any mark clearly visible. The carpet was clean. Worn in places, it had been worn when I moved in, and I had that footage too, but clean. I then checked the extractor fan footage. I had run it during my walkthrough for exactly this reason, and it worked perfectly. The walls were clean. There were a handful of very minor marks, the kind that come from furniture being near walls over 2 years of normal habitation, but every single one of them was documented in my move-in footage as pre-existing. I compared the two videos side by side. There was no new damage, nothing that wasn't there when I arrived. I replied to Aldridge the same evening, keeping my tone measured and entirely without hostility. I told him I disputed every item on his list. I explained that I had comprehensive photographic and video evidence from both move-in and move-out, that the footage directly contradicted his characterization of the property's condition, and that I would be contesting any deduction through the tenancy deposit protection scheme, as required by law. I asked him to confirm, in writing, which government-approved scheme my deposit had been registered with, and to provide the scheme reference number. His reply took 48 hours. It was shorter than his first email and considerably less friendly. He told me the deposit was held in his personal account, not in any scheme. He had not, as it turned out, registered it anywhere. He told me that if I wished to pursue this, I was welcome to do so. I felt something very particular reading that. Not anger exactly, something quieter. The feeling of standing at a chessboard and realizing that your opponent has, through their own arrogance, moved directly into a trap they built themselves. I already knew about deposit protection law. I had read about it before I'd even moved in, same advice from the same friend. In England, a landlord is required by law to protect a tenant's deposit in a government-approved scheme within 30 days of receiving it. They must also provide the tenant with the details of that scheme. Failure to do so, on either count, means the landlord cannot legally serve a valid Section 21 notice while the tenancy continues. But more immediately relevant to my situation, a landlord who fails to protect a deposit can be ordered by a county court to pay the tenant a penalty of between 1 and 3 times the deposit amount, in addition to returning the deposit itself. My deposit was £950, 1 to 3 times the deposit, as a penalty. I did not reply to Aldridge's second email. I contacted a solicitor who specialized in housing law. She reviewed the email chain, the tenancy agreement, the evidence I'd compiled, and the relevant legislation, and gave me her assessment with the measured enthusiasm of someone who had seen this exact pattern many times before and knew precisely how it ended. She confirmed that Aldridge had committed a clear statutory breach. She noted, with what I detected as restrained professional delight, that his failure to protect the deposit, combined with his attempted wrongful deduction and the evidential record I had compiled, put him in an extraordinarily poor position. We filed with the county court. I don't know what Aldridge was expecting when he received the claim. Perhaps he expected me to get nervous, to decide the effort wasn't worth it, to quietly accept a partial return and move on with my life, as I suspect previous tenants had done. What he received instead was a carefully organized bundle of evidence: the move-in video, the move-out video, the professional cleaning receipt, the time-stamped photograph sets from both dates, the full email chain including his written admission that the deposit was held in his personal account, and the bank statement records showing no transfer to any scheme had ever been made. He did not, crucially, engage a solicitor of his own. The hearing lasted approximately 40 minutes. The judge was methodical, attentive, and clearly experienced with this type of claim. She reviewed the evidence in order. My solicitor walked her through the statutory obligations and the documented breaches. I was asked to speak to the evidence briefly, which I did. Aldridge sat across the room and watched the proceedings with the expression of a man who had only just begun to understand the full weight of what he had walked into. The judge was not unkind to him. She was simply precise. She found in my favor on every point. The deposit deductions were rejected entirely. Aldridge had provided no credible evidence of damage, and my evidence directly contradicted each of his claimed items. The full £950 was to be returned. And then, as the court noted his failure to register the deposit in a government-approved scheme as required under the Housing Act, she awarded a financial penalty on top of that. 2 times the deposit value, 2 times £950. I walked into that courtroom fighting to recover £950. I walked out with a judgment for £2,850 plus court costs. Aldridge sat very still as the judge finished. He said nothing as we filed out of the room. His face had a quality I found difficult to describe. Not quite disbelief, not quite fury, but the specific expression of a person recalibrating, in real time, every assumption they had made about how this was going to go. I heard later, through the mutual acquaintance who'd originally connected me with the flat, that Aldridge had done this before. Not with the same evidence or the same preparation, but the tactic itself, the inflated damage list, the vague claims, the implied threat of keeping the whole deposit, had been used on at least 2 tenants before me. Neither of them had pushed back. They'd absorbed the loss because contesting it seemed complicated and stressful and not worth the fight. That's what he was counting on. He had refined his approach over years of tenants who just let it go. He had never met someone who filmed the extractor fan. There is a category of person who mistakes their opponent's silence for weakness, who interprets the absence of pushback as an invitation to keep going. Aldridge had learned over years of landlording that most people won't bother, that the hassle of fighting is a deterrent in itself, that confidence and a large car and a carefully worded email are usually enough to make someone back down. What he'd never accounted for was preparation. What he couldn't survive was evidence. I filmed everything from day one because someone told me to, and I was 23 and renting my first flat and grateful for advice. That small habit, those few hours of methodical documentation, changed everything. 2 years later, it was the difference between losing nearly £1,000 and winning nearly 3,000. Documentation is not paranoia, it is armor. And some people, when they see you wearing it, will still charge. They simply haven't understood yet what they're charging into. Aldridge had my deposit for 2 years. He counted it as his. He spent it, probably, or at least factored it into his calculations the way he apparently factored in every tenant's deposit as a buffer he could quietly absorb. In the end, it cost him almost 3 times what he tried to steal. That's not justice. That's compound interest on a very bad decision. If you enjoyed this story, hit like and subscribe for more karma stories every week. End of script 05. The landlord who tried to steal the deposit.